Do the impossible. That's the only option. Not because it's comfortable, not because it's convenient, but because everything else is a lie, a trap, a cage, a slow death wrapped in average. You weren't built for easy. You weren't wired for predictable. You were born to break limits, and not just break them, obliterate them. Your soul isn't asking for permission, it's demanding proof. And the only proof it accepts is action. You know this. You've felt it. The sting of staying quiet when you should have spoken. The weight of holding back when your body knew it was time to go. That fire in your chest wasn't anxiety. It was your greatness, screaming for oxygen. And if you keep suffocating it, you're going to look back one day and realize that the real impossible wasn't the dream. It was how long you convinced yourself to stay small. Because impossible is a concept built by cowards, people who stopped trying, people who made peace with their fear and called it logic, people who failed once and made that moment their identity. But you're not here to worship their limitations. You're here to break them in front of the world. And breaking them starts with a decision. Not a goal, not a wish, a decision. To burn the fallback plans, to delete the escape route, to stop telling yourself that you'll see how it goes. You don't see how it goes. You make it go. You don't wait to be chosen. You become the standard. You don't ask if it's possible. You decide it's already done. That's how you build the impossible. Not in theory, in pressure, in tension, in resistance, in waking up when you'd rather sleep, in putting in the reps when nobody's clapping, in building when nobody's watching, in pushing when no one believes. Because the world doesn't believe in the impossible until you make it real. And you will make it real. Not because it's easy, but because the alternative is unbearable. You've seen what settling looks like. You've tasted the bitterness of regret. You've lived days where your soul begged you to rise, and you didn't. You've felt that hollow ache, and you promised yourself, never again. So now, it's war. War against the weak voice that says, this is enough. War against the people who settled and want you to do the same. War against the systems that told you you're too late, too different, too ambitious. They don't get it. They weren't built like you. You were built for chaos, for fire, for the hard path. You were forged in it. And the pressure that breaks most people? It's just your proving ground. You don't crack under it. You become something new, something sharper, something stronger, something undeniable. And make no mistake, being undeniable is a choice. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not good genetics. It's deciding that your effort will speak louder than doubt. It's walking into every room like your future depends on it. Because it does. It's shutting down the voices that say, be realistic, with a work ethic that makes reality obey you. You do not fit in. You were never meant to. And trying to blend in has only ever made you miserable. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be unignorable. You're here to carry vision so heavy it makes average people nervous. You're here to stare down the impossible and say, watch me. And they will watch. First with confusion, then resistance, then silence, then applause. And by the time they figure out how you did it, it'll be too late to stop you. But none of that happens if you keep waiting to feel ready. You'll never feel ready. That's the trick. You move anyway. You build before you believe. You leap while your voice is still shaking. You act before it's proven. And that's what proves it. That's the path. And it's brutal. The impossible doesn't give you breaks. It doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't wait until you're comfortable. It demands all of you. Your time, your energy, your doubt, your pain, your silence. It eats your distractions. It starves your ego. And if you're lucky, it remakes you. Because that's what doing the impossible really is. It's not about the outcome. It's about the becoming. The process of building a life that looks impossible to others but feels inevitable to you. Because you put in the work. Because you lived in the fire. Because you stayed when everyone else left. Because you never left the arena. You stayed. And that staying power? That's what makes you unstoppable. Not your skill, not your image, your decision to remain, to execute when it hurts, to go again when it's boring, to sharpen when it's silent. That's the cost. And most won't pay it. They'll stare at the edge of the cliff and walk away. But not you. You jump, and you build the wings on the way down. Because the impossible doesn't need a plan. It needs a person. Someone who no longer needs a way, because they are the way. Someone who doesn't knock, they kick the door open. Someone who doesn't flinch, they forge. Not later, not one day. Now, that's the word. Not later, not when you feel inspired, not when the stars line up. Now, because the impossible only responds to one thing, urgency. You don't get to casually stroll your way into greatness. You sprint, you suffer, you show up. And when your legs burn, when your lungs tighten, when your mind starts whispering lies, that's when you accelerate. Because the voice that says, "You can't do this," isn't telling the truth. It's testing you. It's seeing how bad you want it. It's asking, will you fold again? Or will you rise with such force that the world has no choice but to adjust its rules to fit your standard? This is about rhythm, not hype, not spikes of motivation that disappear after a good video or a pumped-up song. Rhythm, structure, non-negotiable execution. That's how the impossible is done. Not once in a while, not when it feels good, but every single day. On time, on purpose, without question. And that rhythm comes at a cost. You will lose things, comfort, distractions, shallow relationships, weak habits, the version of you that needed everything to be easy. It dies here. You won't miss it. That version was costing you everything, because it was obsessed with balance when it should have been focused on breakthrough. There's no balance in transformation. There's only sacrifice. That's the truth no one wants to say. You want to do the impossible? Good. Then you're going to bleed for it. You're going to lose sleep, miss parties, take risks, get judged, be misunderstood. You'll give your best and get silence in return. You'll show up with excellence and be ignored for a while. But that silence, that darkness, that's where the real ones are built. You don't grow in applause. You grow in the absence of it. In those long nights where nobody checks on you. In those early mornings where it's just you and the work. That's when your character sharpens. That's when your discipline grows fangs. That's when your soul learns how to lead. Not with noise, but with non-stop follow-through. And follow-through? That's the currency of the impossible. People will say, you're obsessed. Let them. The ones who change history always are. The ones who bend reality to their will, who break systems and build new ones in their place. They were always the ones who couldn't let it go, who couldn't turn it off, who couldn't shut it down, because their purpose was louder than their fatigue. Your purpose is louder than your fear, louder than your critics, louder than your past, but only if you let it lead. Stop dragging it behind you like a burden. Let it drive you. Put it in the front seat. Let it dictate your calendar, your conversations, your habits, your attitude. Let it become the force that makes weakness impossible to sustain. Because here's the truth. The real enemy is not fear. It's delay. Delay turns desire into decay. Delay turns dreams into eulogies. You think you have time. You think you can wait until it feels right. But time doesn't care about your feelings. Time doesn't wait for your clarity. Time moves. And if you don't move with it, you'll blink and wonder how 10 years passed while your dream sat in a cage made of excuses. So break the cage. Now, today. With action. With execution so undeniable that even you can't talk yourself out of it anymore. Because you've done enough talking. You've done enough planning. Enough analyzing. Enough watching others win while you convince yourself it's not the right moment. Here's the truth. This is the moment. The fear you feel is a green light. The resistance you feel is a signal. The pressure you feel is not punishment. It's preparation. You're being prepared for something bigger than your current life. And the only way to meet that future is to outgrow your present. Growth doesn't ask for permission. It demands war. A war against every pattern that told you this is good enough. A war against the comfort that pretends to be peace. A war against that voice that tells you to settle. Stay safe, stay quiet. You don't stay quiet anymore. You move like someone who knows the cost of silence. You don't beg life to notice you. You command attention with your consistency. You don't perform discipline. You live inside it. And when that happens, people start to notice. The same ones who said it was impossible. They'll watch you do it. The same ones who warned you to be careful. They'll ask you how you did it. The same ones who never believed. They'll want your blueprint. But they won't understand. Because they didn't see the hours. They didn't feel the hunger. They didn't suffer the solitude. They didn't bleed for the rhythm. You did. You lived it. You earned it. You became it. And now you walk with something rare, something sacred. Not arrogance, not ego, certainty. You don't need validation anymore. You don't need applause. You've trained so long, so hard, so deliberately, that the impossible doesn't scare you. It recognizes you. Because you've been walking toward it for so long, the dream has no choice but to meet you halfway. But this doesn't happen by chance. It happens by pattern. A pattern so strong it overrides fear. A structure so tight it doesn't let chaos in. A rhythm so focused it silences every lie that says, you can't. You already did. You woke up. You moved different. You bled for it. You chose pain over pause. You chose purpose over pity. You chose execution over everything. And that's why you win. That's why you win. Because while others argue over how hard it is, you're already halfway through it. While others are waiting for confidence, you're building it with your bare hands. Confidence doesn't come before the climb. It comes after the scars, after the sweat, after the days you wanted to quit and didn't. You kept going. You kept striking. And now, momentum is no longer a hope. It's a weapon. The impossible bends for those who don't. And that's the decision you've made. No more bending. No more backing off when things get heavy. You are pressure-trained, fire-tested, built in silence. And that silence? It's where your power lives. You don't need to speak about your effort. You live in it. You don't need to explain your focus. You embody it. This is who you are now. Not someone chasing hype. Not someone seduced by shortcuts. You've seen what shortcuts cost. The soul of your discipline. And you refuse to sell that. Not for comfort. Not for compliments. Not for cheap dopamine. You've cut all of it. Trimmed the fat. Cleaned the calendar. Tightened the circle. Every move you make now is surgical. Because precision is the real flex. The ability to move with such clarity that distractions don't even register anymore. You don't have time for chaos. You're too focused on building the impossible brick by brick, rep by rep, system by system. Not until it feels good, but until it's done. You don't try, you install. You don't flirt with the edge, you live on it. That's where the real ones are. Those few who made the shift from casual to convicted. Those who stopped needing external fuel and built an internal engine. You've become one of them, because you woke up and realized no one's coming to save you. And that's the best news you've ever heard. Because now you own everything. Your pain, your schedule, your outcomes, your rise. And in that ownership, there's peace, not comfort, peace. The kind of peace that only comes from knowing you're doing the work, that you're not hiding anymore, that you're not negotiating with weakness anymore, that you're no longer stuck between what you want and what you tolerate. Toleration is the trap. It's the slow poison that tells you, this is fine, but you weren't built for fine. You were built to dominate, not with noise, with rhythm, with presence, with execution so sharp it becomes unavoidable. And when your life becomes unavoidable, when your presence becomes undeniable, that's when you know the impossible is now your baseline. And the world won't understand it. It's not supposed to. You'll hear it. You've changed. Good. You're too intense. Thank you. Why do you take it so seriously? Because it's my life. Because I don't get a do-over. Because I don't get to trade in regret at the end for peace. Because I don't play with what I was called to build. You were called to build something the world's never seen. And you can't do that while living like everyone else. You can't walk in the frequency of average and expect to create something unforgettable. The impossible has never been reached by people who needed permission. Only by those who decided they were done explaining their mission to people who couldn't carry it. So you stopped explaining. You started refining. You stopped seeking comfort. You started sharpening your edge. You stopped fantasizing about impact. You became impactful, not with your opinions, with your example. You became the one who moved differently, who trained while others talked, who rose while others repeated, who structured every hour like it mattered. Because it does. And if you forget that for a second, remember this. The only thing separating your life from the one you could have lived is follow-through. Not dreams, not talent, not desire. Follow-through. The question is not whether you're capable. You are. The question is not whether the impossible can be done. It can. The only question left is, will you execute until it exists? Because that's the threshold most people never cross. The space between I want it and I'll do whatever it takes until it's real. You've crossed it. And once you cross it, the world feels different. You look at time differently. You treat your mornings differently. You protect your inputs like your soul depends on it. Because it does. Every podcast, every voice you listen to, every bite of food, every hour of rest, every workout, every yes, every number, every piece of information you consume or reject. It's all shaping the machine. And the machine doesn't run without total command. That's the price of building the impossible. And the moment you accept it, not tolerate it, not dabble in it, but fully embrace it, everything changes. You stop doubting. You stop waiting. You stop watching. You enter the arena with one mindset. This gets done, or I die trying. And that kind of commitment? It breaks things. It breaks timelines. It breaks generational limits. It breaks every ceiling people built over your name. It rewrites your DNA and then your legacy. This isn't motivation anymore. It's a mission. And when you live on mission, even your silence makes noise. People won't always understand your silence, but they'll see your structure. They'll feel your presence. They'll know, whether they love you, fear you, or envy you, that you are not built like the rest. Because the rest are still waiting. But you're already building the impossible. And you're not stopping until it's done. You're not stopping until it's done. Not until it's real. Not until the thing they said couldn't be built is standing there. Undeniable. Unshakable. Finished. Because this isn't a hobby. This isn't entertainment. This is your life's work. And when your life is on the line, you don't play part-time. You don't give part effort. You don't show up occasionally and expect permanent results. You go all in. Every day. Every breath. Every representative. Every choice. All in. And that obsession? That's not something to hide. That's your edge. That's the trait they don't teach. That's what separates those who dabble from those who dominate. The world calls it too much. But too much is exactly what's required. You don't do average. You don't accept close enough. You don't measure progress by likes, shares, or opinions. You measure it by movement, by follow-through, by the pressure you apply to your own standards, even when no one's looking. You are obsessed with the result, but even more obsessed with the person you must become to deserve it. That's the difference. Anyone can want the outcome. Few will build the identity that demands it. That identity is built in fire, in silence, in repetition, in the hours nobody wants, in the choices nobody claps for. It's built in the moments where you refuse to disappear, when the mood is gone, when the rewards haven't shown up, when your own mind starts doubting again, and you push anyway. You keep pushing, because the impossible doesn't care how you feel. It cares what you do. And the longer you do what's required, the more unshakable you become. You don't break. You bend reality. You rewrite the boundaries. You redefine what's possible for your name, your family, your legacy. And you do it through movement, not inspiration, not emotion. Movement. This is where your obsession sharpens. When every minute becomes a resource. When every conversation becomes a filter. When you stop leaking energy to people who don't build, who don't understand, who don't move like you. You stop explaining your hunger. You protect it. You feed it. You live in it. Because that hunger is your compass. And your compass doesn't point to what's easy. It points to what's necessary. And what's necessary is a level of consistency most people don't have the stomach for. Not because they're bad, because they're comfortable. And comfort kills more dreams than failure ever could. But not yours, not anymore. Because you don't serve comfort. You serve the standard, the mission, the future. And when that's your focus, everything changes. You stop waiting to feel inspired. You show up because you must. Discipline replaces emotion. Execution becomes a default setting. You wake up and move like someone whose time is running out. Because it is. Every hour wasted in hesitation is an hour your future will not forgive. And your future is watching. Every single move. It's asking, can you be trusted? Can you be trusted to follow through? To rise when you're tired? To train when it's inconvenient? To keep the standard high when nobody's holding you accountable but you? Can you be trusted to carry the vision, not just talk about it, but live like it's already yours? Because that's what it takes, not potential, reliability. You must become the most consistent force in your life. Your feelings will change, people will disappear, circumstances will shift. But your standards, unbreakable, your rhythm, untouchable, your fire, unstoppable. And don't expect applause. Not now, not soon, not until the impossible becomes visible. They won't understand what you're building. They won't see the late nights, the early mornings, the inner wars. All they'll see is what you created. And by then, it's too late. Because the moment they notice, you've already moved beyond them. You didn't wait for support. You built the momentum yourself. You didn't beg for clarity. You created it through motion. You didn't lean on validation. You learned to validate your own process. That's the shift. That's when your power becomes real. When you no longer need anything outside of you to continue. You've become that self-sustaining force, that relentless system, that person who doesn't let fear talk them out of destiny. And if fear still shows up, you let it ride in the back seat while you drive forward anyway. Because the fear never goes away, but your willingness to obey it does. You've silenced fear by starving it, and you've fed faith by moving in the dark. You didn't wait for the full picture. You moved with what you had. You didn't let "I don't know how" become a reason. You let it become a challenge, and you figured it out. And now you walk different. Not because you've made it, but because you've become it. You don't flinch at pressure anymore. You welcome it. You don't run from resistance, you train inside it. And when life pushes back, you don't panic. You press harder, because you don't need things to be easy. You need them to be earned. And that's exactly what you're doing. Earning it. Earning the respect of your future. Earning the results your old self didn't believe were possible. Earning the peace that only comes from a life lived in alignment. You've become the one who doesn't miss. The one who doesn't delay. The one who does the impossible and makes it look inevitable. And here's the secret. It wasn't magic. It wasn't luck. It was you. Choosing obsession over excuses. Choosing rhythm over randomness. Choosing discomfort over distraction. Choosing to stay in the fire long enough to emerge forged. Now you carry something rare. Not just hunger, but control. And that control? It's why you'll never go back. Because the impossible was never the problem. Permission was. And now you've stopped asking for it. You've stopped asking for permission. And that's when everything changed. Not when your circumstances improved. Not when people started believing. But when you realized belief isn't something you wait for, it's something you become. You stopped negotiating with doubt. You stopped dancing with delay. And you declared, with action, not words, "I will do the impossible, or I will die trying." And people felt that. They didn't need to hear it. They could see it in your posture, in your schedule, in the way you stopped being available for small talk, for small thinking, for anything less than full pursuit. You shifted from talking about the grind to living inside it, from hoping to hit to becoming so accurate, so consistent, so locked in that even your lowest days look like most people's peak. That's the level where your habits are so sharp that success is no longer a surprise. It's an outcome. Where your vision is so vivid, it shows up in your body language, in your presence, in the way you walk into a room like it belongs to you. Not from arrogance, but from alignment. From knowing you've already earned your future with your follow-through. And you didn't do it for clout. You didn't do it for praise. You did it because you made a promise to yourself, a vow, a blood oath to never again be a prisoner to comfort, to never again shrink your power to fit someone else's expectations, to never again let fear sit in the driver's seat. Because fear doesn't get to dictate your legacy. You do. You're not just executing now. You're engraving. Every rep is an engraving. Every hard decision. Every disciplined day. Every time you say no to what doesn't serve you, and yes to the pain that builds you, you're engraving your name into history. And it's not about being known, it's about being remembered. Not just by strangers, by the future version of you. The one who looks back and says, "You did it. You didn't break. You didn't fold. You carried the weight. You held the line. And because of you, I live in freedom." That's what you're building. Freedom. Not the fake kind. Not the kind that looks good on the surface while you're still chained to old habits, fake friends, and recycled excuses. You're building real freedom. The kind bought with pain, earned with sacrifice, protected by standards, and made permanent through discipline. And that discipline? It's who you are now. You don't do it when it's convenient. You do it because it's non-negotiable. It's the air you breathe. You don't chase it. You are it. And when you become discipline, nothing can shake you. Pressure becomes your rhythm. Chaos becomes your training ground. And failure? Failure becomes your refinement. You've stopped fearing failure. Because you understand now, failure is just data. Failure is feedback. Failure is friction. And friction is what sharpens the weapon. You are that weapon. Sharpened by every missed opportunity, every long night, every almost, every not yet. And every time you got hit and kept walking forward, you got sharper, deadlier, clearer. Now you're dangerous. Not because you're loud, because you're certain. You don't flinch. You don't wait. You don't explain. You move. You're not in the business of inspiration anymore. You're in the business of execution. And that execution is what separates the leaders from the followers, the finishers from the fantasizers, the iconic from the invisible. You chose to be iconic, not famous, impactful. You're building something that echoes, something that lasts, something so real, so earned, so deeply embedded into who you are, that no loss, no critic, no failure can take it from you. Because you've become the work. You are no longer a person with a goal. You are a system with a soul. A force that wakes up with purpose, breathes in direction, and falls asleep knowing you didn't waste the day. That's your edge now. You don't need to feel motivated. You don't need the perfect playlist. You don't even need clarity to start. You move regardless. You move because the movement is sacred. The discipline is the prayer. The execution is the offering. And the result? The result is not the reward. The transformation is. You've transformed. You've outlived the old you, outperformed the old story, outrun the old limits. And now you walk with the pressure of knowing that you have become the example. And that pressure, you carry it with pride. Because you know someone's watching. Your younger self, your future self, your kids, your circle. Someone who needs to believe the impossible is still possible. Because you proved it. And that belief isn't built with quotes. It's built with proof, with repetition, with consistency, with days you didn't skip, with work you didn't delay, with standards you didn't lower, even when it would have been easier. You don't do easy. You do legacy. You don't build fast. You build forever. And the ones who build forever, they don't get tired. They get clear. They don't complain. They get quieter. They don't burn out because their fire isn't emotional. It's engineered. You engineered this, brick by brick, beat by beat, breath by breath. And now the impossible isn't just something you believe in. It's something you embody. Because you did the one thing the world said couldn't be done, you never stopped. You never stopped. That's what made the difference. Not that you were perfect, not that it was easy, but that you made the decision, once, fully, and never took it back. And that's the only way the impossible becomes real. Not through noise, through conviction, through pattern, through pain that didn't push you away but pulled something deeper out of you. You didn't just survive that pain. You turned it into fuel, into standards, into structure. That structure is your legacy, not the wins, not the headlines, not the moments of glory, but the rhythm no one saw, the mornings you didn't skip, the reps you didn't delay, the promises you kept when the world forgot you were still trying. That's what lasts. And now you walk with something permanent. Not hype, not intensity, but certainty. You don't need to tell anyone what you're building. Your life speaks louder than your mouth ever could. Your discipline is loud. Your follow-through is thunder. Your silence is fire. Because you don't lead with talk anymore. You lead with evidence. You are evidence that the impossible is not a myth. You are evidence that vision plus structure equals freedom. You are evidence that pain plus precision equals power. You are evidence that it doesn't matter where you started, only that you refused to stay there. You were built for this, built to carry more, built to hold the weight that would crush most people, and rise anyway. Built to walk through doubt, through fatigue, through fear, and not break. Built to wake up on days you didn't want to, train on days it didn't feel worth it, stay the course when the path was lonely. And now the reward is here. Not just the outcome. The you that was built in the process, stronger, sharper, cleaner, bolder. Not perfect, unshakable. That's what happens when you stop lying to yourself. When you stop delaying what you know is possible. When you stop waiting for the world to approve of the fire inside you. When you stop dragging your greatness behind you and finally step into it fully. And you're not going back. You can't go back. Because the old you doesn't fit here anymore. That version broke in the fire. And thank God it did. Because now you're not even chasing the dream. You're carrying it. And when you carry it, you lead others out. You show them the path. You give them permission to dream again. Not because you told them what to do, but because you showed them what's possible. Because you did it while they were still doubting it could be done. And that's the difference between ambition and legacy. Ambition wants the spotlight. Legacy builds the infrastructure. Ambition needs applause. Legacy is built in solitude. Ambition reaches high. Legacy digs deep. You dug deep. And in that depth, you found something most people never touch. A level of belief that no one can take from you. It's in your bones now. It's how you walk, how you speak, how you breathe. Not louder, more anchored. You move like someone who knows, because you've already lived through the war that gave you permission to own your name. To look in the mirror and finally say, I respect the person I see. Not because you won every battle, but because you never quit the war. You've stopped playing with your potential, stopped dragging your vision down to match your comfort, stopped pretending like discipline is a phase. It's who you are now. It's built into your mornings, into your silence, into the way you say no to what doesn't build, and yes to what hurts now, but frees you later. Because you're not chasing comfort, you're building permanence. And permanence only comes when the process becomes more important than the prize. When your execution is so consistent, your results become predictable. Not lucky. Earned. So when they ask, how did you do the impossible? You won't give them hype. you'll give them truth. I did it because I stopped waiting. I did it because I built when I was broken. I did it because I didn't need to feel ready to act. I did it because I had one standard. Either I finish or I die on the road trying. And that road? You've paved it now. With scars. With failure. With blood. With focus. With choices that cost you everything casual and gave you everything permanent. And now, the world calls you rare. But you're not rare because of talent. You're rare because you didn't fold. Because you didn't shrink. Because you didn't vanish. Because you said, "Why not me?" And then you proved it. You became the proof. And now, no one can take that from you. This is your legacy. Not what you built, who you became, building it. Not just the success, the spirit behind it. Not just the wins, but the weight you carried without ever dropping the dream. That's why you can rest now. Not with regret, with reverence. Because you finished. You didn't talk about it. You didn't half do it. You didn't make it A someday. You woke up, and you made it real. And in doing that, you didn't just do the impossible. You made it look inevitable. Because for people like you, there was never another option. Only this: build or die. Move or disappear. Lead or be forgotten. Do the impossible, or live in regret. But you did it. And now the world knows. You weren't here to participate. You were here to redefine the limits. And now, there are none.